Yeah, they're kind of underpowered. Thank you to our $5 patrons Strawbones, Well4765, Midnight Gemlord, Sean, and Artgoon. And a very big thank you to our $25 patron Alex Ice Rose. Now, we're on this breakdown/discussion on how the commandments should have been mightier. Please remember to leave your own thoughts on the commandments being mighty in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. Use both as low as $1, count them one, down videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? I'll Pencil here, and I'll admit, the commandments themselves are great characters, and their abilities are also very, very good, and all that is really, really good. But the thing that actually needs more power, needs to be more mighty, is the commandments themselves. And I'm not talking about the characters. I'm talking about the specific individual curses. Notably, I think it's just a huge wasted opportunity for what these abilities could have been, especially for characters like Droll, characters like Galaxinia, characters like Melascula. I believe the major issue that runs into these commandments is that their main special effect cannot be activated anywhere near as consistently as you would like it to in a battle series. Like, notably, you have the graces, the direct counterpart of the commandments, that I always just headcanon were born afterwards. Like, I always think the Supreme Deity just copied the Demon King. There's no evidence for that. There's absolutely no evidence for that, but I just straight headcanon that. And that would make sense why the graces are stronger. They give unique active abilities and all that, so on and so forth. But at the same time, it leaves the commandments feeling relatively weak. And sure, you have really good commandments. You have piety. Have love. You do have repose, which can work, but we never see it work within the series. And the thing about the commandments is that since they're curses, they're relatively passive. You can't necessarily actively force their activation unless, like, extremely specific circumstances are met. Like, look at Galland. And all of his fights, he managed to activate the truth on one person, and that was Merlin, because she didn't even want to fight him. She had to lie to his face. And then bada bing bada boom, she got turned to stone. But that's it. In the middle of combat, you can't necessarily have someone lie to you. It doesn't seem to be a possibility that exists within the scope of battle. Same thing with something like faith. I don't know, unless they have faith in the fight that they're gonna win, I don't see you using the ability of faith to burn one's eyes out in the midst of combat ever. And we never see Melascula do it. So, I don't really know. Seems a little bit strange. Repose is a really good ability on paper. The ability to absolutely shut down and seal away the magic of an individual if they fight without rest, fight without repose. Cool. Brody, how can I put this? You already won if you took your opponent's magic down to 0. There's no more need for you to do anything like that. Like, sorry, buddy, I don't see how that works. Patience is good. Patience is like levelly balanced, but I wouldn't even say I think you need it more, because for some reason characters in Seven Deadly Sins are so good at resisting pain. Like, legitimately, if you really think about it, Patience should be activating on like every single fight Droll's in. Presumably all of his attacks would hurt you, and thusly if you reacted to him you should get like a pretty much infinite wombo combo of pain, but that never happens. So it is even useful, and it, alongside repose, are two commandments we never get to see the effects of in series. They're only things we get in retrospect. Purity, I don't even know how you would activate that in general. Like, straight up, I don't know how you would do it, and I don't know how you would do it in combat, especially. Reticence, I don't know. Like, why is someone going to tell you one of their deep hidden secrets in the middle of a fight? And what good is it going to do if they lose their voice? If they're a magician, yeah, I suppose, but even still, what is the likelihood of a magician revealing, I suppose, a deep-held secret, unless it's like a super secret spell? Pacifism is kind of hard to, like, not break even more, because pacifism is pretty stupid. Don't get me wrong, I don't think there's much you can really do to pacifism that doesn't automatically just make it dumb. Like, especially with Grey Road, who does have breakable bugs, like, you're just gonna naturally knock one away and then they're gonna die. So, like, you can activate that in battle pretty consistently. In fact, it's one of Grey Road's main tactics. So I feel a little bit less about pacifism, but still, you could argue, if you're just 1v1ing somebody and they know to avoid the bugs, by the time they get rid of you, I'm not even sure if your commandment would activate on them. Like, if you were to one-shot Grey Road, I don't think pacifism would kick in, because pacifism would disappear with them. So the curse may not even be able to take effect. So all you got to do is dodge some bugs, which isn't the hardest thing to do in a verse where multiple characters can move faster than light. It's not an issue at all. So even pacifism has its troubles. Piety, I don't know exactly how you would activate that. You would have to force your opponent to look away from you. Like, not even look away, like turn their whole back on you, or at least maybe a piece of it. But even then, unless your opponent is like consistently incorporating like spinning tactics, like say you have someone using a spin kick or a spin slice on you, then it would activate. But even still, usually in Seven Deadly Sins, can you really remember many times that the characters turn their backs on each other? I can't, because it's just not a thing that really happens in the fight. So even then, piety can't really be activated that easily. And love is cool and all. The immobility is really, really good, but what happens if you do run into an Escanor? Someone who's just like, oh yeah, I literally cannot feel hatred for you, all I feel is pity. And or someone who has immunity to it. That's another thing. All the archangels, you know, the main predators of the commandments, are in fact predators, because they are entirely immune to all the curses. So the commandments do nothing except give a power amp. And then it's a lesser power amp than the graces. So what's the solution here, right? I want them to be mightier, because they're all kind of booty meat, but what do? I think the easiest solution would legit just be what Nakaba did when he got to 4 Commandment Mayel. Give the commandments the abilities, or I suppose specifically the ability to incorporate their commandment into specific attacks. Like, we have the Scythe, or the Sickle of Sorrow, I do believe, from Mayel. We have the Bell of Truth. We have the pollen of purity, or whatever. We have those different things, and I think that would be a great way to sort of give the commandments more viability with their abilities while still keeping the power amp the same. Make it so that, sure, the archangels are immune to the general curses, but if Galen were to, I don't know, activate the halberd of truth and infuse truth into his weapon, Tarmiel couldn't ocean face him, because he would always be hitting the truth of Tarmiel. Bada bing, bada boom. You have Galen being way more viable automatically. Save for purity. You cannot use any deceitful tactics if Derriere lights herself up with the, I don't know, the gauntlets of purity. And bada bing, bada boom, you can't trick, you can't deceive anymore. That's an active battle usage. Save for reticence. You just do silence if you hit him with like the Monsfeet uses Firebirds. The Firebird of Reticence. Bada bing, bada boom. Your opponent cannot use magic. Like, they just get all their magic sealed away. Like, have you ever been silenced in Fire Emblem games? That, essentially, where you can't use magic at all. Sure, you can still use physicals and you can reinforce yourself, but you cannot use any of your magical abilities. Give these abilities that extra context that allows them to be useful within their specific commandment. Because if you do that, suddenly the balancing problem is no more. You still have the Archangels being arguably better. They have a wider range of abilities with more raw power. All of that stacked on with the fact that they're immune to the general curses of the commandments, but then the commandments aren't so outclassed. Their whole ability and their whole status isn't entirely neutralized, and it expands the movesets of some very limited characters. Derriere's moveset is very limited. Like, she has basic demon biology, which is still very good, don't get me wrong, but like, she has combo star, and that's it. That's all she's got. She's not cooking anything else. Do not think she's cooking, because there's nothing there to be chefed up. Galland. Every single one of his named attacks is literally just him swinging his halberd in a fancy way. Bro has nothing else. These characters, while they have very good basic hacks as demons, kinda suffer. The only commandment that doesn't necessarily need anything more is like Gloxinia. Because Gloxinia already has everything because he has Basquiat, the best thing in the world. But we can't give everybody Basquiat, so at least give them the unique abilities of the commandments. And I know Nakaba probably only came up with it when he got to 4 Commandment Mayel, which is why I don't think, like, some things I look at the series and I'm like, Nakaba, you could have done that in retrospect. Like, I feel like things like Kurochu's and or Lightning Rod could be introduced earlier on in the narrative, and Nakaba had likely already thought of them. But for something like the commandments, or the way that 4 Commandment Mayel interacts with them, I think that was very specifically for his fight. But I think it would be interesting to incorporate it retroactively throughout the series. It could make fights a lot more interesting, where you can't just, like, entirely ignore the commandment, because you can entirely ignore the commandment for the most part, unless you're literally fighting Grey Road who's spitting bugs at you. But it would make it so that the commandments and their titles and how they fight are all intertwined better. Because the thing is, right, one issue I do have with the commandments is outside of Zeldris and Esterosa, the commandments and their respective commandment don't necessarily have much tie. Okay, that's a lie. Gloxinia and Repose has a really good tie. I think that's really, really good. And you could argue Droll and Patience, but that's more like he was kind of impatient, I suppose. So that works out. But the rest of the commandments, like, what about Derrieri's pure? She is a mass slaughterer. I get it. She's pure-hearted in the sense that she just does her job and does not think that much about it, but still not all too pure. Grey Road? The pacifist? Really? I don't see it. What about Galland immediately screams truth other than Galland literally screaming, I am Galland the truth? I don't know. What does Melaskill have to do about faith? Like, these characters seem tied to their commandment just because Naka was like, oh, here's a commandment, here's a commandment, here's a commandment, here's a commandment, here's a commandment. And then he went in depth on like 4 of them. Maybe 3, realistically. Like 3 solid ones. I think the Droll and Patience connection is kind of a stretch. But and, you know, Monspeed works good. So 4 solid ones. Because, you know, Reticence, he hid his feelings for Derriere. But still, that sort of lack of combat viability on a general front leaves the commandments lacking overall. And it leaves their kits feeling a whole lot smaller. And since we know Nakaba could have done it, even though I think in retrospect he didn't think of it until the 4 Command Mael fight, we know he's fully capable of using these commandments in order to get these special effects, in order to use them more fancily, give them more special ways. And you could even have variations of it. You don't have to just limit it to one special commandment effect per character. You could have it so we're like, Derriere could have the Gauntlets of Truth, or she could have the Feet Gauntlets of Truth, or she could have the Eyes of Truth. No, I keep saying Truth. That should be Galland. All of those for Galland, and Purity for Derriere. You could spice it up a bit. You could have these characters have a lot more unique fighting styles based on their commandments, and then they become even more interesting because they're literally tied into their commandment ever more. However, this is all just what I think. I think the commandments definitely needed a bit more of an amp, especially after the graces were introduced, but those are my thoughts. Please tell me your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. Click to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure the little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon below, useful result as $1, count them $1, plans to the videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Zach with the Pencil, writing off.